Hello, World Wide Web. Welcome back to the Hangin with Web show. I'm GW Pomichter. Thank you so much for logging on or tuning in or just turning the computer on today. We're glad that you're here now. One last thing, hit subscribe. That way you can be notified and come back over and over again. We've got authors, artists, filmmakers, musicians, creative minds of all kinds. We got artists, everybody here on the Hangin with Web show. We are in Orlando, Florida this weekend at IBF, the Indie Bookfest 2019. For us, this is where it all began. This is where we started the show 4 years ago at IBF 2015. So we're back at IBF and we're hanging out with author Jacquelyn Ayres, the author of Goodbye Caution, the Lost and Found series. So Jacquelyn, thanks for hanging with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming over.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's talk about the Lost and Found series.
So the interesting beginning of this book, this is my very first book published in 2013.
Okay.
The interesting thing is that it is actually there are three books in the series, and I wrote them all by hand at one time and thought it was one book. And then when I typed it all up, I said, oh, that is not one book, that's three books.
That's yeah.
So I had to separate them. Originally it was called Lost and Found, and then I had to separate them, give them all different names.
Okay.
And that's how it became the Lost and Found series. My readers call it the Goodbye series, but I wasn't clever enough to think about that. So I was just...
A lot of times they're smarter than we are.
Right, I just was focused on separating the books and coming up with three additional names, and it didn't click for me.
Some of my favorite moments are when readers come up and they have these wonderful insights into things that you did, and you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, I'm sure that's exactly what I would have been thinking if I was as smart as you.
Right.
But I'm not.
I tell them that all the time. I just wasn't that clever, and my goal is probably eventually that I probably will rename it the Goodbye series because that does make better sense.
Okay.
So
take us through a little bit. What is the Lost and Found series about?
Okay, so it's basically about a woman she's in her 30s. She has a daughter. She's starting a bed and breakfast business along with scrapbooking events. It's like a weekend getaway and stuff. She has a pretty traumatic past, and so she's trying to rebuild her life. She's got a host of great characters supporting her, and then one of the characters has a nephew that comes in and kind of just really causes her to go off track. He just totally spins her head around, and a lot of things come out. She did have a very close friend, and it was a guy, and things come out about that relationship, that there was more on his side. So it becomes a very hectic book. The first book is very hectic. I always tell people to really buckle in because it's really fast-paced. There's a lot going on. I tend to write everything with a lot of humor. So even though this is my most suspenseful series, there's always moments of laughter because
that's life. That's how people are.
Well, I can't stay serious that long.
People are always looking for that levity.
Yeah.
And especially in a very emotionally charged,
right.
High energy environments.
Right.
We just that's our defense mechanism. We find humor in things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And she definitely does. If there's a serious moment happens, that's her character flaw. She instantly jokes about something. That's how people know she's kind of uncomfortable.
That would do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of things from her past come up, and you really get sent on a very crazy journey. And what I love about the first book is that the readers have all these ideas of what's actually happening, who's behind it all, and book 2, Goodbye Secrets, I really blow them out of the water.
Just take all that away.
Well,
they spent all that time.
Yeah.
Look at this. They spent all of this time, and they had it all figured out. We've got 422 pages, and you had it all figured out. Boom.
And
she just blows it up.
Book 2 is just as big, and number 3 is slightly smaller.
So she spends another 400 pages blowing up your dreams, and then she gives you a couple hundred pages of, okay, we'll fix it up for you.
Yeah, I basically tell people...
Okay, so you wrote these 3 books, like you said, in one...
By hand.
By hand.
In
all
notebooks,
one shot, 3 books.
All one shot. I wrote it in a matter of 5 months. 3 to 5 months. I wrote it all,
Okay, so
and
there's
then
there's
taped it all.
150,000 words there. So
There's-
you wrote
yeah.
you wrote what 700,000 words
Basically,
by
just
hand.
by hand. Just kept writing, and
That's carpal tunnel.
yeah. Well,
my keyboard,
you know,
wow.
before I published and stuff, that's how I always wrote my stories. I mean, it's just very old school. And actually, by the time I published Goodbye Caution, I had the first book to my next series done. So by the time I hit publish there, I had 4.5 books to go.
Wow, awesome.
So it was that first year. It was every other month I was.
Oh, that is fantastic.
You know, it's fantastic until you are published author, and then you've got to do all the other side work.
Yeah. Well, that's one of
The
the things that we
social
like to
media,
talk. We like to talk about our indie authors with is that this is the small press and independent community is one of the places where the author, we're kind of the chief cook and bottle washer. You do everything. You write the book, and then it's the marketing, and then there's first, and then there's editors, and then there's cover designers, and then there's working with your extended community.
Right.
And then there's marketing, and then there's reader events and
Right.
social media, and
Right.
that's all on you.
Yeah,
At that point,
it really is. And so I was very blessed that before I even hit publish, I had 4.5 books
Ready to go.
done. So I was able to just keep putting them out there that first year and a half. And by the time I started slowing down, it was okay because then I had the next one. But, if you really care about what you're writing, you take the time to research. And I think quality is far better than quantity.
Absolutely.
So-
You really want to pour into your work, all of the work that you've
Right,
done, all the
right,
research that you've done, all
right.
the reading that you've done, everything you've learned as a part of your journey
Right.
needs to be reflected in these people because
Right.
they are your representative to your readers. The card she's holding up says writing rituals, but one of your writing rituals is obviously writing with a pen.
Right.
Any other kicking it old school kind of things that you do while you're writing? Or is there music in the background? Is there a special place where you have to sit and to write?
I definitely do music. When I started writing to publish, my children were much smaller. I had a baby and everything. And it's funny because when she was a baby, I found that I had more time to write because you got those nap periods, and now that they're older, they want your attention. So it gets more difficult as
Yeah.
they actually get older.
Yes, they do.
So I just kind of like to, be by myself writing, and I really don't have any other rituals besides the music and, just a lot of research. Sometimes I could describe a vehicle, and then 3 hours later, I'm like, really? I just spent 3 hours researching the vehicle because I want to have everything.
You want to know where everything is, right?
It's, but I do want to recommend that you do the research because I think people get very loose with the idea of it being, it's fiction. But if you're writing, your character has the career of a lawyer or a doctor or any kind of industry, you don't want to flub through that because that's who's reading your book. You're gonna,
there's an industry.
Be reading your book.
It's an industry. There's a doctor or
Yeah.
a lawyer or somebody out there
Yeah.
that might be interested in it
Yeah.
if they don't just turn off because it's not right.
Right.
And the professionals really do. They're the ones that say, I'm an old soldier, so if I read a military fiction book, the fiction is awesome. I'm great. You can fight. I don't care. Fight giant spiders or aliens, or I don't care, as long as the depiction of my guys
Right.
feels real,
Yeah.
and I'm in there. So, researching is a lot of fun. Strangest or oddest thing that you picked up in your research?
Oh my God, there's definitely too many.
Because we're always learning so much about different fields and careers and people, and
Well,
what's
I
the
think
oddest
for
thing
me,
that stands out?
I mean, if you do go on different, it's just this, sometimes if you just search something, some weird stuff pops up.
Yeah, if you really want to have some fun, guys, check out a writer's Google history.
Yeah.
It's a blast.
Yeah.
And we're on most watch lists, which is great.
Yeah, it's a little scary. I think for me, I can't think of anything off the top of my head really that sticks out. There's just a lot, but nothing that really sticks out. But what I love is if I have a slight interest in something, I make it a big interest in the character, and that's a great way for me to learn more about that, or even stuff that I never even thought about. And so I like to learn new things. I'm kind of a nerd.
Well, this is the first book back in 2014.
Published in 2013.
13, that's right.
Yep.
How many books now?
Oh God. How many books do I have altogether?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I have 9.
9. Okay.
Yes,
Awesome.
and I have several in the works.
Fantastic.
Although you were asking me how many I've sold, I'm like,
we don't know those. We don't.
don't
First
keep
of all,
track
when
of
you
that.
first publish, if you're an independent creator, you know this. When you first publish, you obsess for about 4 weeks, and you're there every day. And then you learn that that's depressing, so don't do it. And then you start paying
unless
attention
you
a little.
got a book that goes real hot,
Yeah,
real
if
quick,
you get
then that's
something-
exciting.
If you get lucky and just something just snaps and wow, don't talk to either of us about it because we hate you already. But if that happens, you're in it.
Yeah.
But that first 3 weeks is always like, okay, let's check. Let's check.
I think
And
it's exciting just to see your book sell and know that that wasn't anybody you knew.
that you didn't know that person. That's right.
Right. That's
You had
probably,
no idea who that was. That's always a lot of fun.
Yeah.
When the numbers get big enough so that you do the math in your head and you're like, hey, wait a minute, I only know like 30 people. And there's like 80 books gone. And
Right.
you're like, hey.
Right.
Because I don't even know that many people. So either
Right.
my mom bought a lot of copies or
Right.
those are strangers. That feels really
Yeah.
cool, right?
Yeah.
So there's my shut up card. Apparently we just could do this all day, but they won't
Yeah.
let us. So we're going to say thank you to our partners and our friends at Krypton Radio, our great friends at Hearts Helping Others of Central Florida, the Foxwood Wine Company, Embellish Effects in Orlando, Florida, the Cogler Emporium, Josh Bauer at J. Bauer Art for this fantastic art that's on our set this weekend, our friends at Indie Originals, Space Coast Comics, and our great friend Rick Shea and his team over at Famous Faces and Funnies. Thank you guys for sharing these videos all over the World Wide Web. We hope that you will do the same. We have been hanging out with author Jacquelyn Ayres, the author of Goodbye Caution, and the rest of the Lost and Found series, which you probably will name the Goodbye series.
and be
Boom. Find out why. Log on, tune in, and see who we're hanging with next. Awesome. Thank you so
Thank
much. That was
you.
awesome. Thank you very much.